Hello, my name is Trevor Jenkins, and I meet with the Christadelphians in Ammanford. I've been asked to talk to you today about the subject, men's hearts failing them for fear. Now, there is no doubt that over a number of years, there have been many reasons why men and women's hearts might fail for fear, whether it be the wars that we see continually across the globe, whether it is the various environmental problems that cause the potential destruction of the way of life as we know it, or whether it is a financial collapse that undermines everything we have anticipated as being there for our personal enjoyment. However, many of us have been very surprised to find that the most disruptive thing to come upon us in recent days is a virus infection that potentially threatens to cause the deaths of numerous numbers of people. There are many and varied reasons why men and women have great cause for concern, why men and women are fearful about what the future may hold. Now, it's interesting that the subject that we have, men's hearts failing them for fear, is a quotation from the Bible. It comes from the Gospel of Luke and the 21st chapter. And if you have a Bible, I would ask you to open it and turn to Luke's Gospel. It's in the New Testament, and it is the third book, Matthew, Mark, Luke. And there in verse 21, we find written there these words in verse 26. Men's hearts failing them for fear and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth. Now, to understand the context of these words, first of all, we have to realize that here in this 21st chapter, it is the Lord Jesus Christ who is speaking. It is he who is warning of a time when men's hearts will fail for fear for looking on those things that are coming on the earth. Now, at the time when the Lord Jesus Christ walked on the earth, the nation of Israel, as we know it today, was under the authority of the Roman Empire, the great empire that stretched across much of the then known world and indeed came to our own shores here in the United Kingdom. Jesus was in Jerusalem. He was there in the temple. And at the beginning of this 21st chapter, people were showing him the riches and the splendor of that great temple that stood in Jerusalem that had been built by King Herod, the Roman governor at the time of the Lord Jesus Christ's ministry. And Jesus warns them in this chapter, in verse 6 of chapter 21, that the days will come in the which there shall not be left one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. While people were showing him and speaking of the wonders of this temple, the Lord Jesus Christ warned them that this temple would be destroyed. And they ask him a series of questions about verse 7 when they say, Master, when shall these things be? And what sign will there be when these things shall come to pass? In fact, these things came to pass less than 40 years after the crucifixion and resurrection of the Lord Jesus Christ, as recorded in the Gospels. In AD 70, the Jews revolted against the Roman power, and Vespasian, the Roman ruler of the Roman Empire, sent his armies and totally destroyed Jerusalem. And the words, if you read through this 21st chapter of Luke's Gospel, were fulfilled. That just as Jesus had said, not one stone was left upon another of that great temple. Verse 20 says, when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. And this all came to pass in AD 70. And verse 24 says that the Jews shall fall by the edge of the sword and shall be led away captive into all nations. Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. And in AD 70, the nation of Israel, as it was known, was utterly destroyed. The Jewish people were scattered across the face of the earth. And that was the case that remained for nearly 2,000 years. But Jesus said that Jerusalem would be trodden down, would be ruled by the Gentiles, the non-Jewish nations, until their time was fulfilled. Now, it was nearly 2,000 years that the Jewish people were stateless in the earth. Remarkable that they survived as a nation at all, having been displaced for such a long period of time. Nations in similar positions have been assimilated into the countries where they'd been scattered. But the Jewish people retained their identity. And in 1948, nearly 2,000 years after the Roman destruction of Jerusalem in AD 70, they re-established the state of Israel. And in 1973, they took full control of the city of Jerusalem for the first time since AD 70. And so you could say that in my lifetime, in the lifetime of people like me, we have seen a fulfillment of the words of the Lord Jesus Christ in Luke 21 and verse 24, that the times of the Gentile dominance of the nation, of the city of Jerusalem, was fulfilled. But the chapter goes on in verse 25, that there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars, upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity. Distress of nations with perplexity. The word perplexity literally means with no way out. Distress of nations because they could find no way out of the situation that they found themselves in. Men's hearts failing them for fear and for looking on those things that are coming on the world. And we can understand that, can't we? In the light of the events, not just that we see today, but that we see when we look at the whole gamut of the world's experience over the last few years, and all the various crises that are affecting the way of life as we understand it. Now, it would be very depressing if the Lord Jesus Christ had left matters there. But here in this chapter, there is a very clear message of hope. Because whilst he says that there will be men's hearts failing them for fear, for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, He says in the next verse, verse 27, then shall they see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. And when you see these things begin to come to pass, then look up, lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh. So that when Lord Jesus Christ is telling us, just as he told those that were listening in AD 70 that Jerusalem would be destroyed and that they needed to get away from there, he is telling us that when we see all of these relative disasters coming on the earth and the changes to our way of life as we understand it, so much so that it is a cause for great concern and great fear, then there is no reason for us to be fearful, but that we should look up, lift up our heads, for our redemption, our salvation draws near. You see, the prophet Daniel, back in the Old Testament, goes to great lengths to demonstrate that it is God who rules in the kingdoms of man and gives the power to whomsoever he will. That God has had a purpose with this earth that was centered in the work of the Lord Jesus Christ. And that through the provision of the Lord Jesus Christ and through his sacrificial death and resurrection, he has provided a means of salvation for all who put their trust and their confidence in him. And the message of the Bible is not a message of fear and of foreboding, but it is a message of hope and of salvation. That so, though we see these terrible things happening in the world around us, we shouldn't be despondent, we shouldn't be cast down, but we should recognize that this is the outworking of the purpose of God, and that very soon the Lord Jesus Christ will be revealed in this earth with power and great glory. And those of us who are looking and waiting for his coming might share in the glories of a reign of righteousness and peace that God has purposed from the foundation of the world. So our message to you this day is not a message of fear and of concern, but a message of hope. And we commend you to read the Bible, to learn of the hope that is contained therein, to learn of the salvation that is available through the work of the Lord Jesus Christ, and the hope that we have of sharing in the glories of God's kingdom, soon to be established on this earth. And the fact that we have all these problems that are a cause of men's hearts failing them for fear are an evident sign that God's purpose is about to be revealed in this earth. And that should be a real hope for each one of us. Thank you for listening.